Hello and welcome back to the Women's Basketball Weekly Podcast. I'm your host, Nathan Doyle, and this week we're going back with the Newcastle All-In fan group and someone who I know for a fact knows the Newcastle Eagles women's team very well. He's at a lot of the games. Iain Mitcheson, how are you doing, mate?
I'm all right, mate. Thank you. How are you?
I'm good. I'm excited to talk women's hoops with you. Did you manage to watch the final yesterday, or did you not quite catch it?
I watched some of it, but I was at the Newcastle match.
The Newcastle match, what was the score?
We got beat 2-1.
Did you? I wouldn't know. I'm a Sunderland fan, so I didn't keep up with the game. That's all.
Okay, yeah.
Lucky for you, we're talking about basketball and not football, mate. Because
Yeah.
to be honest with you, watching that football game, I was as much as we won, and it was fantastic. It seems like it's just been a boring set of games, hasn't it? Like there was nothing really to enjoy apart from the goals.
No.
Right, so we'll talk about what was that?
No. Yeah, I'm fine with it. It's fine. You can
Yeah.
have bragging rights for this season, and then
just the next 3 or 4 following.
yeah.
No, we'll move on to basketball because it's what we're here for. And basically, and I know you've been involved with the fan group, and I know you've been watching the men's game for a long time, but I'd love to know how you came onto the women's side of it, because I know you attend a lot of the games. But what brought you towards that?
It was mainly just knowing that like the Eagles were one of the clubs that had like a women's team, and I kind of got into it through watching the men's and knowing that like there was like sort of season tickets and tickets available. So I just thought I'd go along, see what it was like, and I really enjoyed it. And I like that it's like it's a good feeder for anyone who's not been to like one of the men's games, and the atmosphere is not quite as intense. So you can have like people who are sort of like new to the game can use that as like an introduction, and that's kind of what I'd done, because I'd not been to quite a lot of the men's games for a number of years before getting back into it. So that was kind of the idea as well. So
would you see you watch the women's more than the men's now, or is it kind of like a bit of a balance for you?
It's probably a bit more of a balance, to be honest, but like sometimes the women's schedule can be a bit all over the place, so it's not as easy, whereas the men's games tend to just be Friday night. I don't work Friday night, so I know I can attend those, whereas sometimes with the women's games it's a bit up and down. We've had Sunday games this year as well, so sometimes it can be difficult, but I do watch as much of the women's games as I can. So yeah, I like watching some of the other teams as well, because they've got ex-Eagles players playing for them, so I like to keep up with how they're getting on.
Yeah, 100%. I'm the same with, like, obviously Tierra Hodges and Caledonia. First game of the season, because you've obviously mentioned that we've had some Sunday games. Was that a problem for you to get to the women's game? Because obviously Newcastle Eagles the men's team were playing away in Caledonia, and naturally we played the Sheffield Hatters at home on the same day. Did that stop you from going to the game and physically watching the women's one, did it? Was that like a conflict? You went to the women's?
I went to the women's, yeah. The lads the other All-In guys, they organised the away trip for the Caledonia men's game. But like I kind of like, because I've been designated as like the women's team lead for All-In, I kind of like used that as like my platform to sort of like start like with that sort of process and that. So yeah, I chose that over the men's game.
Yeah,
but we thought as well it might affect the attendance of the women's game, but it actually didn't. Like, because we thought that was the first time we'd had a women's game at like, I think it was a 4:30 or a 5:30 tip off. And we thought it might have affected the attendance, but it seemed to work really well that time.
It was a weird decision though, I thought. Like, I was like you, I thought it would really affect it. It was quite a frustration, because naturally I think if there's one game people are going to go to as an away game, it's probably going to be Caledonia as well. So I was with you. I kind of thought it would affect that. You mentioned that you're team lead as well for the women's side of the fans group. What does that entail?
I just try and I try and drum up interest for people who maybe have never been to women's games before. And I've done a couple of presentations at the games for like, I run the Eagles All-In Women's Player of the Month vote. So, and it was just getting people involved and engaged that way as well. And just seeing like anyone trying to get like people to cross over if they've never been before, but also just to sort of like, just be that face so that people know that like I'm the designated like women's team lead. So if anyone's got any questions or any sort of like issues with like sort of ticketing or anything like that, they know they can come to me if they don't want to like go directly to someone at the club.
Yeah, yeah. And there's obviously the big one next week for anyone that doesn't know what it is next Thursday, right? I hope so because I've got tickets and that's what I'm.
2nd of April, yeah, it's the day
2nd of
before
April.
Good Friday, yeah. So
Yes, that.
it's a week on Thursday.
Yeah, honestly, it's not that I don't know when it is. It's just me days are terrible and
Yeah,
I've lost dates. So I know I'm
yeah,
going on the Thursday. I've got my ticket there.
yeah. It's not the
How
26th, so it's the 2nd of April. So yeah, it's a week on. It's a week this Thursday.
Yeah, so for anybody that doesn't know what that is, the big one is something we've done for, I think this is the third year. Correct us if I'm wrong, Ian. I think it's the third year Newcastle Eagles have done it. And it's an opportunity for obviously fans to get down and try and sell out the arena for the women's team that are performing so well this season and last season. How
Yeah.
big of an opportunity do you think that is for the club and the players? Do they thrive on something like that?
I think what's made it interesting this year as well is that they're playing on the show court. Whereas anyone who doesn't know the Eagles arena, the men play on the show court and then they rotate the court 90 degrees for the women's game nights and they only use one stand. So on this night, it's going to be the ENBL, the European men's setup. So they're going to have both the East and West stand open. And I think it's a fantastic opportunity for the women to play on the show court to get like how it feels. Because I know the other teams that share an arena with the men's team, so Manchester, Caledonia, Sheffield, they all use the show court. So this will be the first time one of the big ones that they've actually done it, and I think it's really good. I think it'll just bring more. Hopefully, it'll bring more exposure and grow the sort of like the women's team and the women's pro, like bring it in mainly into those people who might not know about it or might not like sort of be fully aware. And we've even got some people who it'll be the first ever women's game. So that'll be good to like sort of welcome them in to sort of like see how they enjoy it.
Yeah, definitely. And if I was going to put a bit of pressure on you and say you're going to do a sales pitch here, how successful has the last 2 years been in your opinion? Like, what is the atmosphere like compared to? Because obviously the normal women's game, like you say, it's a different court. There's one stand open, and it's obviously it's not like a Newcastle Eagles men's game on a Friday night where the crowd are dead loud. How do you think that changes when the big one rolls around?
There's just a lot more promotion around it. And this is not a slight on the Eagles as a club, but there is sometimes not as much promotion around the women's games, whereas these ones were trying really push it. And if I remember rightly, not last season, I think the season before, we sold out the south stand. So then they had to open the north stand and sell tickets for that as well. So it's going to be interesting this year with it being on a Thursday, because they've always previously been on Saturday nights. So I don't know if that's going to make a difference at Easter weekend. But I think like anyone who like hasn't been before, I would say just come down, and I think that the atmosphere will be like better because of the bigger court setup and the main court and the show court and stuff. And I just think that that'll encourage people, and I think it'll encourage the girls to hopefully get the win. But Manchester are a tough team, but it was originally meant to be against Leicester, but they've rearranged it so that Leicester was Friday just gone and
Yeah.
Manchester's now the big one. So that could be again, like, I know Manchester's away fans, and I was speaking to, I hope I'm all right to mention him, but I was speaking to Elliot, who does the MCing at the Manchester games.
Yeah, yeah.
And I know he's like saying that like having Manchester as like the opponent will probably like attract more people. So hopefully it will, and it'll be good to see sort of like he's hopefully going to be coming up for it as well. So I don't know if he's been like, I know he's been to Virtue before, but I don't know if he's been to a women's game at the Virtue. So it'll be good. Yeah, hopefully we can break the attendance record.
Yeah, I would love it because I know I went. It was last year was my first, the big one, so I obviously missed the year before. And honestly, the difference in atmosphere, it seems like the pace of the game goes up a notch as well
Yeah.
because you've obviously got the crowd behind you. It seems like it's more exciting, and I'm kind of with you. And it's like you say, no slight on the kinds of Leicester, but with that being Loughborough based and a university based team, it feels like Manchester, who are building some momentum with the kinds of Tiara East there. I'm really excited to watch this game. I think it's going to be because I think the Newcastle team this year, well, we'll touch on the basketball in a second. I think the Newcastle team have actually been really good for what you can expect on their budget in the year.
Yeah.
So I think matching up with a team in Manchester where, we could face them in the playoffs and it'll be a great game. I think it just kind of gives you a little bit of taste of what's to come as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's quite a close-knit league this season as well. And I think it's kind of like we want to try and secure that like higher seed so we get the home playoff quarterfinal.
Yeah.
And so I think obviously games like this, and when it is as well, with it only being like 2 more home games after this, and then we've got 3 scheduled, and then there's the London away game to reschedule as well. So it'll be important for both teams to like get that momentum, or to keep that momentum going into the postseason. So yeah, it'll be good to sort of like see how we get on, and whether the girls thrive on the like sort of show court atmosphere, or whether or not they might freeze. You never know, but
Yeah,
hopefully they
it can
don't. But
happen.
yeah,
Yeah. So for anyone who is interested in that, I will drop a link in the bio when this release. So we're talking on the 3rd of March at the moment on the Monday. This will release on the Saturday. So I'll put the link in the bio for the tickets for anyone that wants to come, whether you're a Manchester fan, a Newcastle fan, you might be a Sheffield fan. Like Iain says, it's an exciting time. It's the show court. It's something different. And if you've never been to a women's game before, imagine your team is not playing on a Thursday night. Come along, support whichever team you want, and just soak in that atmosphere. Just try and see if you like it, because you might have a perception of the game that's totally different to what is actually reality for it. So that's the Thursday, the 2nd of April. So if you can, pop on the link, come along. It's going to be a fantastic night. So now we'll actually touch on the basketball, Ian. We did
yeah,
digress a little bit, but that's my fault. I tend to do that. Before the season, obviously, there was a lot of turnover. We had a great year last year. We had the kinds of Lauren Psyche, Tiara Hodges, had them players along, and Jada Gwynn, they were all fantastic. They kind of worked in tandem so well. With us losing that core of players, what were your expectations for this season?
I'll be honest. They were relatively low. Like you said, last season, like we had 7, 8 players, I think it was, to replace from last season. All of those players that we replaced were like the players that have obviously gone on to either Europe, or Tiara Hodges is elsewhere in the league. So what I think is very good though is that we've brought in some players with SLB experience. So we've got the 3 girls from Durham. We've got Sarah Wells, Shanique Lucas, and more recently Harriet has come in, Harriet Otwell Salisbury. We've got Maria Mongomo, who's recently announced her pregnancy, so she's going
Yeah,
to miss the rest of the
congratulations to
season.
her.
Yeah, absolutely. But she had EuroLeague experience with Freiburg, so that was important. And then we've obviously got Alyssa Marin and Andrea Daley, who is ripping the league up with like leading like in scoring, and I think it's rebounds as well now. She went for 33 and 10, I think, another double on Friday night. So yeah, the expectations were quite low, but I think we've done well with injuries, and with like sort of had Jada Dapper came back. She was at the Eagles 2 seasons ago, got injured, rehabbed, and is back this season. So like having her experience and her like sort of know-how and energy and stuff as well has helped, even when she hasn't been playing. But we've not been able to get our best starting 5 out on the court consistently. But we've managed to sort of like win games and get results despite usually being the underdog in games.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's the big thing. It's it's keeping this squad healthy, it feels like.
Yeah.
Out of the off-season departures, was the one particular one that really got to you, and you were like, that's the one player, because obviously, like you say, Hodges has gone to Caledonia. Jada Gwynn was fantastic. The way she was electric on the floor, the way she would move the ball, the way she would get inside, the way she could shoot from deep. Lauren Psyche was obviously, I don't want to say underrated, but also she was one of the best playmakers I've seen in this league for a long time. Is there any of them 3 that you really thought, if we could have held on to her?
I think probably Tierra, to be honest, because I'd watched her during the 24 season as well when we got to the O2, and she was phenomenal. Like she carried the team like on her back for most of the playoffs. And once she came back last season, we thought maybe she'd come back again this season. But just to have someone like what we seem to have missed this season is someone with like that inside presence. And she had that. She could score, but she could rebound as well. And we do have that, but we don't have it as consistently. So I think her and the fact that you mentioned Jada Gwynn, like Jada Gwynn's scoring, Andrea Daley's coming and is kind of scoring at the same sort of levels as Jada did. So I definitely think Tiara, although one person we've not mentioned as well as Kendall Currance was
Yeah.
really good last season as well. And she sort of like, she was someone that, although she didn't, a lot of the time didn't light up the scoreboard, she was very consistent. So she'd be consistently in double figures, but like it was like low double figures, but like you, in the grand scheme of like, you'd look at the final box score and sometimes you didn't realise that she'd scored 12, 13 points, but like it was how much she contributed like throughout the game and stuff. But ultimately it was Tiara, I think, that was the one that I think was the hardest to replace.
Yeah, 100. Did you expect the Caledonia move as well? Like, obviously not for a leave, and you said there you expected her to stay. If she was going to move, did you think it would be to another SLB team, or did you think maybe she would make the move to Europe?
We thought Europe, like a few of us like that go regularly to the women's games, we thought once it was announced that she was leaving, we thought it would be Europe. So it was a big surprise when it turned out that it was actually Caledonia that she was going to. And I mean, she Caledonia's first pre-season game of this season was actually against the Eagles. So it was kind of a bit of a bittersweet sort of moment for Tiara to like sort of, she'd never played against a team that she'd played for
Yeah.
previously. So that was her first experience of that. But yeah, it was a surprise, but I'm happy that she's doing well in Caledonia. Obviously they're playing the Eagles on the final day of the season, so it'll be nice to sort of like see her back at the Virtue in the league. So yeah, that'll be something to look forward to.
I've got to say, Ian, you're so politically right. I'm going to boo her. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to stand there the whole time, just boo her every time she touches the... No, I'm like you. Do you know what it is? I think because she worked so hard for the Eagles over 2
Yeah.
seasons and she was so consistent, it's hard not to like her. It's just when she makes the move up to Caledonia out of every team, you're like, oh, out of every
Yeah.
team you could have chosen, and you're going to choose that one. But I'm with you. I'm definitely going to make me way to that final game of the season because I think the way Essex are playing as well, you've got Essex, you've got Oakland's heading back up the league. It's going to be such an interesting finish to the season to see what seeding we get, I think.
Yeah.
And at the start, like you see, you were at the first game at the Hatters. I was there with me. I like to take my mum to the basketball. That's my best friend because I've now got no friends, so I take my mother to basketball games. Sarah, my wife, is interested, so I stick to my mother. I said to her that it's going to be a tough night because I didn't know what the roster was going to be like. Obviously, it was new, it was constructed, they hadn't worked together before. The Sheffield Hatters were kind of different. They retained the core players and the added players like Megan Mullins. What did you think of that first game? Because it was a heavy loss and it felt like, you mentioned it, an interior presence. It's something Newcastle lack, especially when the injuries come in. Obviously, when Chloe Gaynor entered the field on that game, it seemed like we were a different team. We kind of got on top of the Hatters quite a bit. What was your first thoughts of the team after that game?
It's a good question. Thought it was going to be a long, tough, hard season looking at the team, but then being the first game of the season, like the fact that Sheffield had retained a core group from last season. So like they had Georgia Gale, Nina Crisper, Shauna Harrison, and then they'd added like the bits, whereas we'd like had wholesale changes. And yeah, Sheffield are that kind of team though, where you can be close with them for 2.5, 3 quarters, and then they can just pull away from you. And they've proved that I was at the trophy final. They proved that yesterday in the cup final that like they're that kind of team. But I think from being blown out in that first game of the season, I think we were expecting maybe to sort of like have a losing record at the minute. So the fact that we've progressed and we've actually like managed to get onto a winning record and stand ourselves in good stead to get that home seeding for the playoffs, then I think that's sort of like, that's shown that Chloe's got them well organised and that sort of next player up mentality, which one of the players goes down and like the next player knows their role. They may have to play more minutes than they used to, but they're ready. And like, so I think like even she's always said as well, Chloe, that like you learn more from a defeat than you do from a win. And I think she's probably taken that as like sort of, right, this is the standard, this is where we need to try and get to. So I wasn't too disheartened. It was the first game of the season, and then obviously the progress after that's been better than I was expecting it to be.
Yeah, 100%. And obviously, a key part of that has been Andrea Daley, and we will touch a bit more on her in a second. You've said, obviously, we've mentioned Sheffield and how good they are. Caledonia, obviously, are maybe just a level underneath the Hatters. And then maybe you've got the group of Essex, Newcastle, Oaklands. What does success look like for Newcastle this season? Because obviously, we essentially will clinch a postseason place. How deep in the playoffs can this team go?
Potentially, I think we could, if it's a home game that we get, because it's quarterfinals, semi-finals and final, they're just one legs. I think it's the same format this season as what it's been previously. I could think that if we get a home tie in the quarterfinals, I think we can get through that. I would like to think we could get to the O2. We did it 2 seasons ago as the 6th seed, so obviously we've proved we can do it. That was a different roster, that was a different team, but essentially it's got some of the same parts that were there 2 seasons ago. Chloe's still there, Zoe Willis, Sarah Burkett, so we've still got like a core sort of like experienced group. So I would like to say we could get to the O2, but I think just getting maybe the semi-finals, I think would be a successful season, because obviously last season was when we got the best regular season record in the programme's history. So that was obviously something, but then the playoffs didn't go as well as we'd hoped they would, because we always seem to end up playing the Hatters in the playoffs and losing. So, but yeah, like obviously if we can avoid the Hatters until later in the playoffs, then yeah, I think we could probably go quite far.
I know the Hatters, it's such a frustrating one, isn't it? Because a lot of the time in the postseason, one of them is like, well, maybe if you get them early and you catch them when they haven't built momentum, and then this year they've obviously won 2 trophies, they're going to probably clinch the league. So I think the momentum has already started, so it's probably something we want to avoid this time around. No, but I'm with you. I totally agree. I think we're kind of on our day, and with everybody fit, I think we're an awful matchup for any team in the league. And if we can get Andrea Daley fit and constantly on the court, I think she's a brilliant matchup against Megan Mullins. That's a big one for me. I think if you're going to find that, that's kind of a matchup where I think we can kind of, not maybe best them because she's a fantastic player, but we can match them. But obviously a big loss. But again, congratulations to Maria Mongomo. Pregnancy, say goodbye to sleep, because I'll tell you a story now, Iain, because it happened last night. And if anyone, I'm not a good look at the best of days when you look at my camera, but these bags right here is because my 19-month-old child was up from 11 p.m. last night. I start work at 3 a.m. So, and luckily my wife, she got up and looked after the baby, but every time you went to put her down, she would cry, we were back awake. So yeah, get excited, Maria. It's going to be a great time for you. I hope you enjoy sleep while it lasts. It's but again, congratulations. But she was having a fantastic season, right? She was doing some great things for this team. She kind of filled a hole where Jada Gwynn had left.
Yeah.
So in terms of her going away, and she's now going to be on maternity leave, what does that mean for the Eagles? How much will we miss her going down the line?
I think it'll probably be felt more than what we think it's going to now, because she was very used to playing 30 plus minutes a game, and someone else is now going to have to step up, or 2 players are going to have to step up and sort of cover those minutes. And we've had injuries all season, so if we get certain players that go down injured again, then we don't have the depth that some of the teams have, that we can like sort of rely on someone to play 25 or 30 minutes. So I think also her versatility is probably going to be missed as well, because you could play her pretty much any sort of position between 2 and 4 really, and she could do that comfortably. And you don't get many players in the league with Euro Cup experience or Euro League experience. So I think those three things, I think it's kind of like one of those like three-pronged things where like you don't realise until someone like that isn't going to be there how much you're actually going to miss them. So, I mean, Chloe talks about it, as I said before, about the next player up mentality. So hopefully the players that she does have available for the last part of the season and the playoffs will step up and sort of like show that they're worth sort of like the extra minutes they'll be getting.
Which player do you think that is? Which player do you think steps into that? Because it's big shoes to fill because she can provide such a score and punch at any moment. If Daley isn't scoring for a few minutes, she can add them points. Who can step into that role?
If she's fit, I think Jada Dapper can. I watched Jada during the 23-24 season, and when we played Caledonia on the road in the playoff semi-final, she was phenomenal. And she offered something that we'd never really sort of like before. She had that inside presence, but she could also sort of like, she could battle like outside as well. And she brought that energy that was needed. So I think if we can get her healthy, which she's assured us she'll be available for the big one. So if that's the case, then I think she could probably step in and could easily play 25 minutes. And now Alyssa Marin's fit as well, that would free up Shanique Lucas to maybe step into like playing the 2 or the 3 then as well. So Shanique's another one who's come from Durham's, got the experience and had an injury earlier in the season, but is now fully fit and healthy. So I think she could be someone to sort of like look out for over the next few weeks as well, who could step in and fill that gap.
Yeah, I think she was fantastic as well. I think it was last Thursday we played, wasn't it? I think Shanique had a great game. She showed what potential can be for her. I suppose it's just finding consistency in them performances. But again, that comes with staying healthy, doesn't it? It's kind of, it's one of them things with this Newcastle roster where there's a team there, but it's finding the consistency in that rotation and finding your roles and making sure you're healthy all the time. That's one thing that is a concern. But obviously, what isn't a concern is Andrea Daley and how well she is playing. We've mentioned it. She's a scorer. She can rebound. She can defend. What's impressed you most about her this season? Because obviously, coming into the season again, we said we don't know that much about these players. You can watch highlight tapes and it can show you anything you want to see. But we didn't know that much about her. What has been your impression of her and what's impressed you the most?
My impression of her is that she's similar to Jada Gwynn last season. Someone who's come in, she can handle the ball if you need her to. She can shoot the 3. She's a good free throw shooter as well. Just it's just like our all round game is probably what's impressed me the most. Because sometimes you can see some of these players can be maybe not one dimensional, but they can kind of have like one strength. And obviously her main strength is scoring, but it's everything around her. If you look at her numbers, if you look at her stats, like there's always like rebounds, assists, steals and everything added to that as well. So I think that's what's impressed me the most is just how all round her game is.
Yeah, in that game against Leicester at the weekend, I didn't realise you see glimpses of her like holding the ball and looking after it and like dictating play. The way she was dribbling in under the basket as well, as a couple of times she sent the Leicester defenders the other way, and I was like, that's a part of a game we don't always see, and maybe that's something we're going to see more now that Maria's out of the game.
Yeah.
So I think she's just been, honestly, an absolute breath of fresh air into a team where I wasn't quite sure where they would land. Is there any other players that's really impressed you this year that's kind of came out of nowhere and maybe they don't get the light they deserve?
Not so much come out of nowhere, but I think Sarah Wells has done really well. She played for Durham last season. Came in after with Durham not being in the league this season. And she's someone again who's had an injury but has just been consistent, maybe not necessarily the highest numbers, but she reminds me a little bit of when we had Lauren Saiki last season, where some games she kind of goes under the radar. So she's definitely someone who has like impressed me just with like her tenacity and just being like sort of that kind of like she's happy enough to like sort of do the physical side of the game as well. Like she'll get knocked down, she'll always just get back up again. And she's also quite vocal on court, which I like as well, because she's willing to like take accountability, but also like hold her teammates accountable as well.
Yeah, 100%. I think she's been, again, a great player. And when she's on the court, she's really doing a job. Well, Iain, honestly, you've been a fantastic guest so far. And now we've just kind of, with one last question, we're going to veer away from Newcastle a little bit. And we'll try and veer away from the Hatters because I think they're going to be the obvious choice to this question. Do you see any dark horses in this league that aren't called the Newcastle Eagles that can maybe push the Hatters and the Gladiators right to the end and maybe pip them to the title?
Manchester, maybe. Or Auckland's are always like there or thereabouts. I know Auckland's last season were particularly strong, not to sort of like rain on their parade, but the Eagles were the team that snapped their unbeaten record last season. And that was
Yes.
that was last season's big one, I think, was against
It
Auckland.
was.
Yeah.
I remember it
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. So there's that, and I mean, like they've got like Shanice Beckford-Norton. They've got a couple other players in there as well who are like they're always Lee Ryan coaches them really well, and I just think the way in Manchester this season as well, I just feel as though like Franny Hottinger's really like sort of stepped up. Yeah, so I think maybe one of those two teams, and you never know what Essex, like the way Ashley Cookson has them playing, is always just like sort of they're always a tough team, and I mean like. The Eagles lost away to Essex a couple of weeks ago as well. So they're one of those teams that, and as you said, like when it comes to playoffs, it's like sort of one game usually, like, so you never know on that day, like what sort of like if there's injuries or if there's going to be like sort of just a team that's uncharacteristically out of form. So I know you wanted one team, so I will probably say out of those three that I've mentioned, I would probably say Auckland.
Yeah. Yeah, Auckland's is the team I tip as well. Obviously, I was speaking to Danny McCrea last week. She came on the podcast and she was also a great guest. But I think the mentality when you hear her talk, and I think Auckland's are a team that share the ball and the kind of, if they're going to score, they're going to score at you from all angles. And it's really impressive to watch where it's one of them where you'll double up on the best player and another player's going to go ahead and score 15, 20 points. So it's obviously outside of Newcastle because we're going to back them all the way. But I think Auckland's is a good choice there, definitely.
Yeah.
Well, Iain, you've that's it, mate. You've
Nice
managed to get
Thank
to
you
the
very much.
end. No, thank you for coming on. And for anyone that doesn't know, and hopefully you've not got a stalker about, Ian's going to Switzerland tomorrow, so we're going to wish you a nice holiday, pal.
Thank you.
No, and thank you for everyone for listening. And obviously, this is now a weekly podcast, so if you would like to like, share, subscribe, we want to get the word out there, bring more awareness onto the women's game, and get as many guests as we can on to bring you some good insight. Iain, you've been fantastic, mate. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me on. Thank you for inviting me and everything. So yeah, it's good.
No, it's fantastic. And thank you everyone for listening. So we'll see you next week with another episode.
Thank you.